What is going on, New York Giant fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Big Blue in the Bronx podcast. Hope you guys are doing well in this cold weather. If you got snow or you didn't get snow, it's getting colder outside. Like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops or a video drops. Appreciate y'all coming back. Share this out, do all the good stuff. If you haven't already, please check out my video that I did on Friday regarding the release of Daniel Jones and how it affects Brian Daboll, Joe Schoen, and the entire organization. So, the New York Giants, no more Daniel Jones, Tommy DeVito era. They're going to face the Tampa Bay Bucks this week, who are pretty desperate for a win. They could definitely get in the playoffs. They have an easy schedule up ahead of them. For more on that, Brian Mansell, Mr. Bad Takes Brian, will join us in the second half of our show to really give us that Bucks perspective we're going to be missing in the first half. So, as far as some expectations, some first thoughts, really as these next 7 games kind of crumble down, I talked a little bit about it in the Daniel Jones video, and that particular thing is we need to see, from an objective standpoint as a content creator and someone who covers the team, not a fan, we need to see some improvement. Not talking defensively, but offensively. You made the switch to Tommy DeVito. You cut Daniel Jones, Tim Boyle's QB3, Drew Lock is QB2. That's it, right? You're saying Daniel Jones was the issue. If you're Brian Daboll and you pushed out Kafka, pushed him out of the play calling role, right? You pushed him out last year. You're the play caller. Everything's on you now. Everything is on you. It's not, Tommy DeVito's bad. Well, guess who elected to start Tommy DeVito? Guess who elected to keep Drew Lock as QB2? Guess who elected not to draft a quarterback? It was this regime. So your feet are by the fire, and you have to face the music. So we'll get to see over these next 7 games against this team, let's see, who do we face next? We face the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. That should be fun. The Saints, I think the Ravens after that. You got the Falcons, the Colts, and the Eagles. So hopefully that's a number of 7 games over the next few weeks that I listed out. But let's go to the injury report. So for the Tampa Bay Bucks, a number of guys questionable. Tristan Wirfs, he was limited all week with a knee and a foot injury. He should be playing, limited but questionable. Zion McCollum, full practice on Friday. He's questionable. Did not practice the first 2 parts of the week due to hamstring injury. Troy Hill, the newest addition to the Tampa Bay Bucks secondary, is questionable. Limited all week in practice, I should say, with an ankle and a foot injury. Defensive tackle Greg Gaines, foot injury. He was limited and is questionable. Hamstring injury for Mike Evans, limited, questionable. He should play, though. Full practice for Jamel Dean in the secondary, and doubtful is rookie out of Georgia, Tyke Smith, with a knee injury. Did not practice the last 2 days. Practiced on Wednesday on a limited basis. For the New York Football Giants, you have about 5 guys with game statuses up in the air. You have Bryce Ford-Wheaton, who was limited with an Achilles injury all throughout the week. You have Micah McFadden, who didn't practice on Friday. He is questionable. Darius Muasau, questionable with a limited practice all week, hamstring injury. Malik Neighbors did not practice on Friday due to a groin injury and full practice throughout the rest of the week. Limited on Wednesday for Mr. Kayvon Thibodeau, who's coming back from wrist surgery. He should be playing. And the Daniel Jones release could do one of 2 things. It could open a spot for Tim Boyle, or it could open a spot for Kayvon Thibodeau. I would like to think that it's going to open a spot for Kayvon Thibodeau. So let's take a look at these team stats, 2024 team stats for the Bucks and the New York Football Giants. The Bucks on offense, they've been hitting pretty much on all cylinders with Liam Cohen, the former Ram assistant, the former Kentucky, I forget he was a coach. He was either a coach or he was an offensive coordinator. Nonetheless, 8th in total yards, 10th in passing offense, 10th in rushing offense, and points per game, they're 5th. Now, defensively, that's where it gets a little bad. Defensively, I think Todd Bowles still calls the plays. 30th in total yards, 30th against the pass, 16th against the run, and 27th in points. You look at their offense analytically, 9th in pass percentage, 24th in run percentage, 10th in pass percentage on first down, 24th in run percentage on first down. 8th in blitz percentage, 20th in pressure percentage, but they've been getting more sacks as of recent, so they are 10th in the NFL. The New York Football Giants, they rank 24th in total yards, 26th in terms of passing offense, 14th in rushing, 32nd in total points, so they're the worst scoring offense in the NFL. 14th in total yards on defense, 4th against the pass. I didn't know that they were technically categorized as that good. Maybe it was just the bye week and facing Bryce Young before that, he didn't tear him up too much. But 4th against the pass, 29th in rushing yards per game, so they're not good against the run. Maybe that's where the Bucs attack the Giants. And 16th in points per game. Now, 10th in pass percentage, 23rd in run percentage, 19th in pass percentage on first down, and 11th in run percentage on first down. It's going to be interesting how those metrics kind of line up these next 7 weeks after Tommy DeVito comes in, and maybe we'll see another QB change depending on how Tommy DeVito plays these next 7 games. But if that's the case, and they do change the quarterback multiple times, the ship is going to be very much rocky for the rest of the way. They're 9th in blitz percentage, 13th in pressure percentage, and 2nd in sacks. So, what are some things to look for with the Giants offense, the Giants defense, the Bucs offense, the Bucs defense? So, quick RPO offense for Tommy DeVito. He does not really have a deep ball. You guys watch him last year against the Pats. You watch him against the Packers. You watch him against the Commanders. He doesn't really have a deep ball. It's more of a laser. So, it's going to be interesting to see who he gets involved. See if Malik Neighbors plays. I bet Wan'Dale Robinson is going to be involved a lot. Neighbors, we'll see. Jalen Hyatt, I'm not really holding out hope. I do expect Theo Johnson to be more involved. I would anticipate it's going to be a very much easy offense for Tommy DeVito. Maybe they do some play action where DeVito actually has to go through his progressions, but he's not that much of a skilled quarterback, if you will. No offense, Tommy, but I'm just speaking off of knowledge. And the one thing that the NFL has on Tommy DeVito is film. Saw it from the first 3 games last year. Then he goes out and, against the Saints, he shits the bed. And then against the Eagles, he plays for a half and gets benched. So the NFL has film on him, right? I don't think that things are going to change much. Yeah, he's got a better offensive line, but this is a pass rush that has been coming alive the last few weeks. And Tommy DeVito is not necessarily good at reading the pocket. Maybe he's gotten better. We'll see. But you got that going for him. You got the new O-line, as I talked about. You got the better receivers, but not really. If you're looking at the grand scheme of things, nothing much has changed around Tommy DeVito. So as far as the defensive side of the ball goes for the football Giants and the Bucs offense outlook, and also, by the way, they're going to have to attack. And DeVito is not Daniel Jones to where he's going to he's not as, I don't want to say careless, but let's use careless for lack of a better term, where he's going to throw these hospital passes and this, that, and the other thing. He's not a great quarterback. He's a decent quarterback, but I would expect if he is having some sort of a rapport with Malik Neighbors because said corner is not playing well, I would tend to think that they're going to go back in that direction, that they're smart enough there. But then again, what the fuck do I know? So as far as the defensive side of the football, now it could go 2 ways. They could pound it down the Giants' throats a little bit, make Dex work on the defensive side of the football, especially with Michael McFadden not being in. Okereke has not been the same linebacker this year as he was in years prior. I think that's a scheme thing. And Bucky Irving has been heating up. Rashad White, he's a little bit hesitant in the hole, but Bucky Irving has played really well for a rookie running back out of Oregon. Obviously, on the other side of the football, it's Tyrone Tracy, and the Bucs defend the run pretty well, better than the Giants, but it's not great. So they could pound it down the Giants' throats. Graham Barton has been a reinforcement on that offensive line in terms of being a run blocker. So that's definitely a plus in the direction of Tampa Bay. Though Baker Mayfield, he's a smart quarterback. He's an improved quarterback over the last 2 years. You could look to go to Mike Evans. Now, there's going to be 2 X factors on the defensive side of the football that I think are there. One of them is I'm not going to tell you which one Brian's going to pick, but I think Deonte Banks and Tyler Nubin are going to have a good game, respectively, each in their own. Maybe Jason Pinnock takes some of that heat off of Deonte Banks, but Nubin has mostly been the deep safety, and he hasn't really done well this season. I think he's been a tad overrated by the Giants community. So when Mike Evans is going to do his thing, maybe he's not at 100%, but let's just say he's at 60 to 90%. He's going to be doing his thing. I'm scared for Deonte Banks in a realistic standpoint. And then you have Tyler Nubin, who hasn't really been good all year, hasn't been the ball hawk, hasn't really read coverage as well. That's going to be a pick your poison for Tampa Bay. But it's not really poison because both of them very much could work. So, it could be one or the other. That's what I think in the terms of things to look for. Now we go into the players to watch in specific. You have Baker Mayfield, who's had a phenomenal year, 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 70.6 completion percentage, 2,505 yards, 7.3 yards per attempt. I'm going to look up right now at this moment who has the most passing touchdowns in the NFL. And it didn't change with the Thursday night game. So let's go with passing leaders, touchdown leaders. Right now it's Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and Baker Mayfield. So Baker Mayfield, if he has a good enough day, could try to reach Joe Burrow, but I highly doubt that because Burrow is on another level, though the Cincinnati Bengals are not a good team. So you take a look at the rushing attack. Right now it's Bucky Irving over White in terms of yards by at least 100. Bucky Irving, 5.1 yards per carry, and you could tell stats-wise that he's been better. 49.2 yards per game, 4 touchdowns, 3 plays over 20 yards. Longest run of 32, 5.1 yards per carry, and 492 yards total. Take a look at Rachaad White, 306 yards, 3.8 yards per carry. Longest run is 56, 1 play over 20, 1 touchdown, 34 yards per game. Both of those guys have a fumble lost, and then Sean Tucker is way behind with 186 yards on 26 carries, 7.2 yards per carry. His longest run is 36 and 1 touchdown. You take a look at the receiving game. Obviously, we know what happened with Chris Godwin. Cade Otton, he's going to be a guy to watch for this Giants defense, whether it's Jason Pinnock on him or something along those lines. But he's been one of the go-to guys for Mr. Baker Mayfield. 4 touchdowns, 4 plays over 20, 456 yards, 9.3 yards per reception. Mike Evans is right behind him. Obviously, he was out for a few games with the injury that he had. I think I said it was a hamstring injury, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it was a hamstring injury, so I'm correct on that one. But Mike Evans, 335 yards, total of 26 catches, 6 touchdowns, total of 5 plays over 20, 12.9 yards per reception. And then you have to factor in the running backs that are in there. Rachaad White is good in the receiving game. Bucky Irving also plays a role. And you'll definitely see some of this guy this weekend. That's Sterling Shepard, the former New York Giant, who wasn't really thought to be as much of a role player as he is now. Like, a lot of Bucs fans in training camp thought this guy's going to get cut. And Sterling Shepard has been a decent part of their offense. 10.4 yards per reception. He's got a touchdown, a play over 20 yards, 166 yards on 16 catches. And then Trey Palmer and McMillan, they also factor in as well. So as far as the offensive line goes, Tristan Wirfs, 5 penalties, 0 sacks. Former New York Football Giant Ben Bredeson, who I think he helps out the Giants if he plays a little bit more, or they already have passed that threshold in terms of a comp pick. But Bredeson, he's like the weakest link of the running game, which really doesn't surprise me because that was pretty much his issue with the Giants. 2 penalties, 0 sacks. Graham Barton, 6 penalties, 1 sack. Cody Mauch, 2 penalties, 2 sacks. And Luke Gadecki at right tackle, 4 penalties, 1 sack. You take a look at the meat and potatoes of their defensive line, 31 tackles, 5 sacks, 8 TFLs, 9 quarterback pressures, and 7 quarterback hits. It's going to be a tough game for the interior, specifically, in my opinion, for John Michael Schmitz, and that's going to be up against Vita Vea, who is great against the run, great against the pass. I know he's been trickling with injuries the last few years, and the Bucs have been in and out of the playoff hunt, and he doesn't really get the shine that I think he should. Maybe it's production-based, but you look at Chris Jones, you look at Dexter Lawrence, you look at Quinn Williams. This guy really never gets the top of the threshold, so maybe he should a little bit more. Maybe he has a good game against the Giants, and he gets to the top of that threshold. But you also have their second-year man, first-round pick last year, Kalijah Cansey out of Pittsburgh. 17 tackles, 4 sacks, 7 TFLs, 6 quarterback pressures, 6 quarterback hits. Now, I wasn't originally going to do this, but upon some information that I accumulated, I'm going to look at the pass rush. So we're looking at a guy, second-year player again, Yaya Diaby. I believe he wasn't out of Kentucky, but he was in that general area. He came from a smaller school. It was Louisville, actually. He had 7.5 sacks last year. Right now, he's got more pressures than he had last year at 16. 2 sacks, which is less than he had last year at this point in the game. 7 TFLs, 8 quarterback hits, 1 forced fumble. So he's doing a little bit more. Less in the tackles for a loss, same quarterback hits, but of course we have 7 games to go. And then you go to this guy who's really disappointed in a Bucs uniform, but as it gets closer to the end of his contract, he's kind of trying to make his way up. That's Joe Tryon-Shoyinka out of Washington, who was drafted in 21. I believe he was a first-round pick. If he wasn't, he was a second-round pick. 2 sacks, 17 tackles, 3 TFLs, 3 quarterback hits, 8 quarterback pressures. So he's trying to come onto the scene a little bit more, and either way, one of these guys is going to be an interesting matchup for Evan Neal, where against Carolina, you really didn't have anyone to go against. I mean, Neal, I watched the film. I watched the tape on him. It seems like the technique is still a problem in the passing game. You know, his feet, his balance, his head hanging. But the result is better, which, you know, you take what you can get. Either you're a glass half full guy or a glass half empty guy. You know, take that as you want to, right? So it's going to be an interesting matchup for Evan Neal on the right side, either against Diaby or against a guy, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. Levante David's having a decent year. In coverage, he ain't great. He's got an interception. He's got a touchdown given up, 101.9 passer rating, 88.6 completion percentage, 72 tackles in the season, 3 sacks, 5 TFLs, 2 quarterback hits, and a pass deflection. You move into their secondary, which really isn't the greatest. You have Zion McCollum, who, looking at the stats-wise, he's probably the best that they have. 10 pass deflections on the season, 55.2 completion percentage. He's got 2 interceptions. He's given up 4 touchdowns, about 12.9 yards per completion, and 86.4 passer rating, along with 48 tackles. You go to Josh Hayes, who has 3 pass deflections on the season, 68.2 completion percentage, no interceptions, 3 touchdowns, 128.2 passer rating. So those are the guys who pretty much headline their secondary for the most part. So moving our way down, and I would go over Tyke Smith, but it looks as if he's probably not going to play this week. He is doubtful, as stated on the Tampa Bay Bucks injury report. And then just for general knowledge, they do have some other guys back there. As I mentioned, Troy Hill and Tyreek Funderburk. That's a fun name. But if we want to go over Troy Hill's stats just quickly from last year, not Troy Hairston, Troy Hill. I'm looking this up on Pro Football Reference as we speak. He played a little bit for Carolina this year, 88.2 completion percentage, 1 touchdown, 119.4 passer rating. So not good. He's been pretty much all over the place since he started his career in Cincinnati, then went to L.A., then went to Cleveland, back to L.A., Carolina. So he's been in a couple of different places. All right. Keys to win and a score prediction before we head over to Mr. Bryan. Keys to win. I think you got to torch their pass defense. Their secondary seems like it can be exploited. I don't know how they're going to do it with double covering Malik Neighbors, but it seems like Tommy DeVito, in a perfect world, he would be a better quarterback, but the quarterback he is, he looks like he can sort of exploit a bad pass defense. We saw he did it, in an average setting last year against the Packers and a couple other different teams. And this is his secondary he can exploit. So if they take Neighbors away, go to your tight end, go to your other wide receivers. I would love to see Jalen Hyatt, but that's wishful thinking on my end. So number 1, you got to torch their pass defense. Number 2, it's kind of, I don't really want to rely on the defense for this one, but stop the pass. You got to be able to double Mike Evans because he's going to be the strongest part of the game. Him coming back, going up against Deonte Banks, you really don't feel good about that. You really don't feel good about that if you're a Giant fan looking at things objectively with a glass lens that's not dirty or blue. And if they run it, which is kind of in the same standard, you gotta defend the run. You gotta defend the run, or else it could get very, very ugly very, very soon. As far as where Tampa Bay is in giveaways, um, I'm gonna look at where they are in the list. Let's see. They're about middle of the pack in giveaways this season on the. I believe this is the offensive side of the football, so they're about middle of the pack, like bottom 10. They've only given it away 12 times this season. So, force a turnover, right? Time of possession is going to be a little bit a part of it. I don't think it's going to be a major part of it. I think the Giants will expand their offense a little bit because it's DeVito, because Baker Mayfield is a passing quarterback. It's not, he has to hand it off 30 times. That's what their pass offense is centered around. And the Giants can go one of two ways with this thing. They could either try to, have this zone defense, this soft zone defense, let them have every play in front of them and stop them in the red zone, or they could go click for click with Baker Mayfield on offense and do it with Tommy DeVito and Malik Neighbors. So, torch their pass defense, stop the pass, defend the run. I know that's kind of a combination. It's kind of a simpleton word, simpleton, I should say, step. And then number 3 is you got to accumulate a turnover. Now, as far as a score prediction goes, I have the Tampa Bay Bucks winning. It wouldn't surprise me if the Giants won, and they're on this little parade because they won a game for the first time in nearly a month. Actually, it's been over a month. Let me say the Tampa Bay Bucks are going to win 24-9. 24-9, Tampa Bay Bucks win. They start this win streak. I think they face Carolina next week, or it's an easy opponent either way. So they start this winning streak. They'll start against the Giants after their bye. New York Giants lose, and sea gets hotter in New York. Let's turn over to my discussion with Brian Mansell as we get the Bucs side of things.
All right, so now we are in the second half of our show, and for the Bucks week, I had to invite on Mr. Bad Takes Brian, who has been with us on multiple projects, multiple videos, multiple live streams, and was with us in February down at the Senior Bowl. It's getting very close that time of year, but nonetheless, Brian, your first thoughts. I know you, before we even get into the Bucks, I put a video out on the Daniel Jones situation. I know you said backstage you wanted to give me your thoughts on the situation, being that you live in the New York tri-state area.
Well, first off, thank you for having me back on. I also can't wait for the Senior Bowl event next year. It's going to be phenomenal. A couple months away. Can't wait to see all the new talent come into the league. What hidden gems are going to be available. But back to the task at hand here. Let's talk about Daniel Jones, and I'm going to give you my 2 cents on that. Daniel Jones it's a weird way to summarize the time in New York. But what I want to say is the way it ended was just not right. And what I mean is, I'm not saying that the guy is bad. I'm not saying I'm not saying he was a great quarterback. I'm not saying he was the worst quarterback the Giants ever had. I mean, trust me, they've had plenty worse. But to have the guy go from being QB1 to QB3 to QB4 to then become a scout team safety at a practice that he was asked to do, and he accepted because he's just doing his job, and he's still putting the team first. I feel bad because I understand the guy's making $40 million a year, or was, but at the same time, it's almost disrespectful to kind of do that to a guy who's given a lot of years to a team. You got to separate the performance on the field from the person, because the person that he is someone who gave up a lot to be a quarterback for the New York Giants. He sacrificed a lot. So no matter what your view on Daniel Jones is, he always put the team first. He was fighting for every down. He was fighting everything he could through poor coaching, through bad management decisions, through rough ownership. He went through so many different things that you can't help but feel bad for the guy and hope he does well wherever else he goes. Obviously, he's not going to make the same money. The Giants had their reasons to do it. All of it makes sense. But I really hope that Daniel Jones lands on his feet properly, because the way things ended there, it was so abrupt and unfair, I almost feel bad for him. They could have waited till after the season, but I understand the financial burden that would have came with that in making this decision now, because it makes no sense to keep a $40 million man on roster when you're not going to play him.
Yeah, definitely. So, Moving into the Bucks portion of the show, of course, that's why we had you on because we want to learn about the Bucks. What is the reasoning? I'm going to guess injuries is one of them, and Todd Bowles too, behind the fall of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who obviously got eliminated last year against the Detroit Lions, but now sit at 4-7, or is it 4-6?
No,
Uh,
we only. I think we're around like 4-6. I'm pretty sure.
4-6. Okay,
Yeah.
and you guys have a pretty good stretch coming up, but nonetheless, you guys are desperate for wins. Why is that?
Well, there's many routes we can go on dissecting how the Bucks have done. I mean, if I was going off the angry fan route here, this would be a very long 20 minutes. I'm gonna rant, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna keep it very concise. The play calling has become an issue, and it's not on Cohen. I'm not talking about the offensive coordinator. I'm talking about the defensive side. Offensively, the Bucks have been on a roll. Running game is one of the best it's been in a long time, and by a long time, I'm talking like Doug Martin time with he was with, alternating with Charles Sims kind of deal. Like that was something I just. It's been a long time since we've seen a good running back for them, or a really good running back room. They've got that now. And on top of that, they're still throwing the ball well. It sucks that they didn't have Evans for the last few weeks. It sucks what happened with Godwin, but that's also on Bowles for being aggressive. He's making bad decisions at bad times. We're learning really quickly that in high pressure situations, he folds, he crumbles, and that's just not the way to play. We had two examples of that for 2 weeks in a row. That Chiefs game, the Bucks had it exactly where they needed to be. Baker played his heart out. He's been playing like a top 10 quarterback who's being underpaid what he's earning, and he's playing out of his mind, putting the team in the best situations to win every time. Just for the team to either get too conservative and try to just take the points or whatever and play light and then put the ball back in the one guy who does not lose in the regular season when the game goes to overtime. He does not lose, and that's Patrick Mahomes. And what they do, knowing the past events was playing a very bad game, they did it anyway, and they lost the game. Happened in San Francisco. Same kind of deal. Had the game where you wanted it, threw it away, wasted drives, made bad timeout decisions, game management decisions, sank the team, put the ball back in San Fran's hand, lost the game. This is what I'm talking about. It's not necessarily poor play, it's more poor coaching. And it comes to a point where the talent can't hide that. So I think that's really what's attributed to the 4-6 record. But I think that's going to turn around very quickly starting with this game.
Yeah, definitely, and we'll definitely get into the schedule upcoming. But how big of a bright spot? And I forget who leads the NFL in touchdowns, but how big of a bright spot is Baker Mayfield in this mess?
Man, he's probably the main bright spot on this offense. I mean, again, I can name a couple other guys. I can name Marquise Bucky Irving for Tampa Bay in the running back room. He's come out as a shining star, and that was supposedly dominated by Rashad White. He's been playing really well there. Also, shout out to Graham Barton, the rookie center playing for the Bucks. He's been playing like a machine. I got to give him his credit. He's been playing really, really good football lately. Um, and the O-line just been on fire, like literally on fire. They've been one of the best in the league this year. I didn't personally believe it at first, but when I looked at the numbers, they've been ranking in like the 15 to 10 area. They've been pretty decent, a lot better than people expected. But let me go on to this point as well. Back to Baker. There's a lot of doubts about Baker. Baker's been counted out his whole life. Let's just start with that. He's never been the guy you look at him and you're like, okay, he's going to be a star. He's going to be winning a Super Bowl one day. He's got all it takes to be a legend and possibly be, well, I wouldn't say legend, but like be a mainstay in the league for a long time. Again, your first overall pick, you should be. But he wasn't playing to that level in Cleveland. He got moved from Cleveland. He was playing in Carolina. You didn't see it there. You didn't see it with the Rams. He comes to Tampa. There's no expectations. He comes in. He plays well above what anybody thought of him, gets his money, and he's playing even further above that. You want the proof? Here's your proof. He's third in the league in touchdowns this year with 24. He's got 24 touchdowns this year. And that's just passing. They don't even count for any rushing touchdowns. 9 interceptions. Yeah, it's a little high, but they're playing a more risk-taking offense, and that's what you like to see. And in terms of passing yards, the dude's in the top 10 in passing yards. His QBR, middle of the route. But it doesn't matter because he's been playing really good football. overall. It's better than what it's been his career. You can't find a quarterback who's played much better than Baker Mayfield in the league. I mean, sure, you can name the obvious. You can name Lamar. You can name Jared Goff. You can name probably Josh Allen. You can start counting some of these guys down. You want to hear a crazy argument? Baker's playing better than Patrick Mahomes. And Mahomes is still kicking. He's still winning because he got a great team around him that's helping him out. That's what the Bucs lack. The Bucs are lacking that team that's able to elevate and build off the strong play of their quarterback, or can help their quarterback when he's not having his best day. Tampa doesn't have that. They have a team that actively works against their own success, and that's not something that'll win you football games. And hopefully they took this bye week to take that more seriously, because yes, the Giants have moved on to DeVito with this offense, but it's very important that they win this, because the second you overlook an opponent, that's when they get you. Just because they benched Daniel Jones and released him does not mean this offense is going to come out here and try to wreck your season.
Yeah, definitely. And moving to the running back room, I know there's been production issues over the last few years over in Tampa Bay with that running back room. Have the Bucks shown any signs of shifting to Bucky Irving, who's done really well this season, over Rashad White, or are they still on Rashad White as number one?
As of right now, it looks like Rashad White's still number one, but it's with the lower snap count. So you're seeing more snaps go to Bucky, a little less go to Rashad. Rashad's still lead back. What they're realizing is Rashad's really good out of the backfield making catches as a passing back, which he always has been. Receiving back, he's been phenomenal. He's very good at that, good at making plays in space. Bucky Irving is much better at chopping up into the trenches and being shifty to get around tight gaps. And that's the important thing that a lot of teams need from their running backs. That's a big trait. He does that very well. And that's something that Rashad doesn't. Rashad has a lot of stop and go, stop and go. That can't happen when you're trying to run through tight gaps through the line. When you're trying to run inside, you need a guy that's going to keep churning forward and doesn't stop. Like, if you watch Bucky run, he moves forward always. He's always moving. He's never slowing down and stopping. You're seeing him dig his heel in, dig in the side of his foot, push off, and still stay in motion and not be moving that much slower. And that's what turns things around. And also the guys just can't tackle him because he's always moving. So you're getting more missed tackles. I think I read somewhere he's got like one of the, among running backs this year that qualify, he's got like the most missed tackles as a running back. Like, people who try to wrap him up cannot do it. It is very hard to do. And to even be in that category as a rookie is telling enough. So that backfield is still got a bit of a share leaning towards White, but on the ground itself, running, churning out the tough yards, it's Bucky's field.
Yeah. Moving over to another rookie, Graham Barton. How has he performed in his first year at center?
Way better than people thought. I think he's been well above what they expected last year. Again, it sucks what happened with Ryan Jensen. Hope for the best for him. Hope he's enjoying retirement. Let me just say, Ryan Jensen was a huge part of the Bucs offensive line, especially during the Super Bowl year and the year after that. And he put his career on the line to come back and try and help them win another Super Bowl, go on to the Super Bowl run. And unfortunately, that just didn't happen. And it actually made things worse for him, and it pretty much ruined any chance of him seeing the field again. And that's why he medically retired. Well, last year they had to work with Robert Hainsey for the second year in a row, who really isn't a center, in my opinion. He plays more as a guard, a swing guard, and that's okay. But to force a guy into the center, you're forcing him into a position he's not natural with, and you could tell by performance. Like, he wasn't bad, but there was improvement there that was needed. So now he becomes the backup center and swing guard if needed in the back as the backup. By getting Barton, they get a guy who is a sure fit. In terms of run support, he's been great, opening up gaps and, sealing things off, pulling, pushing, everything's been great. That's what's really been the defining factor. And I think that's what's completely swept under the rug about this Bucs offensive line. Led by Barton, they are so much better against the run. The weakest part for them for the last couple of years, since Ali Marpet retired back in 2021, 2022, it's been the interior. The interior O-line's still not the strongest, but they've played better. There was questions about Malk after the season he had last year's rookie year was not very good. You were talking about now adding in Ben Bredesen, a former Giant, who probably will play this weekend. Just so people are aware, I know he was on the injury report. He's expected to play. He's been doing a decent job, decent enough. I probably think he might be the weakest link in that area, but he's been playing pretty well to what we need. And Barton, interior. You completely revamped the interior O-line with two guys that were heavily needed, and it worked out. And hopefully they can sustain that, maybe upgrade the guard spot in the draft or free agency, see what happens. But overall, I would say Barton, he's like a B plus right now performance. He's been doing everything right, being solid, playing like a first round pick. Not more you could really ask for.
Moving to the defensive side of the ball, I know we were talking about this before the season started, and it kind of surprises me, and we were talking about it again pre-show, that the Bucs are 10th in the NFL in sacking the quarterback. What part of that is the pass rush? Are there any other components to that side of the ball? I know Vita Vea and Kalijah Cansey lead the pack in terms of individual players on your team in sacks.
Yeah, I mean, Cansey's done really well. We saw flashes of that last year when he was on the field. He was pretty much a home wrecker. He does a really good job at getting into the pocket. Bull rushing is the key. They call him Mini Aaron Donald for a reason, man. He knows how to make things work. Vita Vea, you guys know him. He's like an immovable object. It's unbelievable. The guy knows how to bull rush, get through, break through centers and guards, and get to the quarterback. It's very good. Not the fastest guy, because if you remember, he didn't have a very fast 40 time at the combine, but the dude can move. He's super strong, and if he can force guys back and make the guy and force the quarterback to trip up, that's a sack, and it gives him everything he needs to win. Now, if we're talking about what really attributed to why the sacks have been so good, I'm going to name a guy right now for you. Tryon Shoyinka. We have been waiting for that man to finally step into the shoes. It's got to be his fourth season now in the league. We've been waiting a long time. He was in the shadows of Shaquille Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul, a couple other guys on that defense. And now he's kind of coming out into his own because he doesn't have a choice. He's starting. There's nobody else that can fill his role. He had to step up. There's been a lot of questions about if he'd be back after this year. I think they denied his fifth-year option, so he really needed to have a better year. And to this point, he's been one of the secret stars. I mean, if you look up his numbers right now, I guarantee you, Tryon Shoyinka is going to be in a category of his own. And what I mean by that is it's an improvement, probably his best season so far. Yes, I'm going to add this, though. He does only have 2 sacks on the year, but the stats don't justify the film. You watch the film on Tryon Shoyinka, the way he's crashing in, he's getting a high pressure rate on the quarterback. He's forcing more hurries. He's getting hits on the guy, and they're worried more now on the outside than the inside, which is what Tampa Bay needs. When you're worried about the outside pressure, you forget about the inside pressure. You forget about the interior guys that know how to get home, how to get to the middle of the pocket, keep you in the tackle box. That's the thing. And if Tampa can keep that going from the outside with Tryon Shoyinka and Yaya Diaby together, that is a good thing that they can continue to build upon. So overall, I think you could attribute a few things. It could be, the D linemen. I also think you got to give credit to guys who stepped up. Diaby's second year, not much attention was paid to him, but he's played some really good football. And I mean, that's it right there. It's really been the outside linebackers and the D line. They've done a very good job.
Yeah. Now moving to a lesser productive part of the defense, that secondary. You guys traded Carlton Davis to the Lions. How big of a loss is that showing up now with all the injuries?
Yeah, I was dreading this conversation because I could tell you safely, I'm not okay. I'm not okay with this Bucs defense. In that aspect, in the passing aspect, I'm scared. And I'm going to explain to you guys why I'm completely scared. So let's start off here. Let's talk about the pass defense, right? I take my defenses very seriously. And the worst thing Tampa is the passing game. They can't handle it. 1 second. Sorry, something's.
He's allergic to a bad secondary, everybody.
Yeah, I can't take watching these people much. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Watching the secondary, you can see the faults in their game. They allow the 8th most completions in the league, and that means percentage. So they allow a 68.6% completion percentage. By comparison, we're going to talk about a team that's not playing well. the New England Patriots, the Tennessee Titans. Both of them have allowed a lower completion percentage than the Buccaneers this season. That's scary in and of itself. Another thing they're not good at, they're not good with turnovers. They cannot get interceptions. In terms of interception percentage, the Buccaneers have the 7th worst in the league at a 1.3%. For comparison, that is the same exact interception percentage as the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are on par to get the first overall pick this year. And they have one of if not the worst defenses in the NFL this year. Now we go to, yards gained per attempt. You talk about, every pass attempt or yards per catch, yards per game. You go through that. The Bucs are in the top end of everything there. Even the passer rating. The Bucs have allowed the 4th best passer rating in the NFL. Come on, people. You did mention the sacks. We won't get into that since we already went over it. But you see where I'm getting at with these trends. And there's something else I saw that pissed me off the most. And what peed me off the most was the conversions, because I noticed it the other day and I can't get over it. In the red zone, defending in the red zone, trying to stop touchdowns and scores, the Buccaneers are like middle of the pack. They're like a 57.9%. They're about, for reference, I'm going to give reference again. The team who has a better percentage of stopping touchdowns in the red zone and completing those drives, the Indianapolis Colts. And the Colts secondary has not been great. I'm sure you know that, Alex. They haven't been a phenomenal defensive football team this year. They haven't been the best. And I can easily say the same for another team that's not playing well, but their secondary is doing lights out things in the red zone, and that title belongs to the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are somehow ranking in the top 7. Even your Giants have a better red zone percentage than the Buccaneers. That's how bad things have gotten. And that's something that needs to be worked on. And more important than anything else I can name here, the percentage on third down for third down conversions. Oh my goodness. I don't know how to explain this. Tampa is a 43.3%. That's the 9th worst in the league. For reference, the worst belongs to Carolina at 48.1, but it's still a bad metric. You cannot stop a team on third down. That's how you lose games. You cannot let teams convert on third down. I mean, I would think that this defense with Zion McCollum would be better, and Jamel Dean. Granted, Jamel Dean's been hurt. I'll give him his little lax there, but there's just something about this secondary every year since that Super Bowl season. They've gotten progressively worse and worse and worse up back to this point, which this is probably one of the worst Bucs secondary performances we have seen since pre-Bruce Arians. And that's saying a lot. Because pre-Bruce Arians, you're talking Dirk Cutter with Mike Smith as a defensive coordinator, the former Atlanta Falcons coach before Dan Quinn. It's just, I wish I could explain it in better. And I know it's not some of these guys' fault. I can't blame Antoine Winfield Jr. I know it's not his fault. He's doing everything he can. You don't have everybody you need. There's not a lot of depth. You're putting out third-string guys. The Bucs have been so banged up this year in that secondary that you're seeing third-string guys get playing time. Guys who are usually on the practice squad are getting called up to play. It's becoming hard for them. So they have to hope that the healthier they get, the better they can perform, and that they can change things around a bit.
Absolutely. So we had this discussion before we came on again. Do you think the Bucs could make a run out of these next few games?
You want my you want the realist answer, the optimistic answer, or the correct answer?
Let's go with the correct answer.
The correct answer, I think, is yes. And I think they can make the wild card. Because realistically, right now, we said they're 4-6. They can lose 2 games. That's fine. They can be 9-8. Let's be honest. This conference really isn't that competitive this year for the wild card. I mean, sure, you want to include the NFC North, NFC West, sure. But they're so competitive against each other. When the division games get played, you're going to see teams get knocked down a bunch. And that's going to open doors for other teams to step up. So for Tampa Bay, it's totally realistic. I'll give you guys an example. Remaining strength of schedule. Ideally, and this is me being an optimist here, I think the Bucs are only going to lose one more game the rest of the way. And they're going to end up being 10-7, and they're going to get a wild card, and fall just short of the division from Atlanta. For reference, the Buccaneers have the second easiest strength of schedule remaining in the league. The only team who has it better is Jacksonville, but we know Jacksonville's already dead in the water. Tampa Bay still has to play the Giants this weekend. They've also got, at some point this season, the Raiders, the Cowboys with Cooper Rush. Yeah, that's a joke. The Saints, 2 trips against Carolina, and then they also have the LA Chargers. The Chargers are the hardest team on that list, and they are technically beatable, but it doesn't mean they will. If they do everything right and the secondary does improve, I can see them going undefeated. It's in the realm of play, but I don't think it's going to happen. I'm thinking they're going to finish out 10-7 here. I think there's a real possibility they lose one game but win everything else. And I mean, if you compare the rest of it, Atlanta, who is I think one game better than them, they have a 1-game lead. Atlanta still has to play the Vikings, still has to play the Chargers as well, and they got to play Washington. And then on the back burner, it's 3 easy games: Giants, Raiders, Panthers. They could realistically lose 2 of those 3 games between the Vikings, Commanders, and the Chargers. And if that happens, it's easy for Tampa Bay to just swoop right up and jump into the division spot too, if they only lose 1 game. So there's a lot of flexibility in the NFC South that just, trust me on this, it's between Atlanta and Tampa Bay for the division. It is still a real possibility, but they cannot lose any easy games moving forward.
Moving into further game prep, 2 X factors, 1 on offense and 1 on defense for the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Ooh. X factors on offense and defense. Okay. Well, first off, let's go with one guy who is coming off injury that's making his return this week, and that is going to be Jamel Dean. Yes, I know if you look up his status, they're saying he's on IR, but no, he practiced all week, limited and full, and it's looking like Jamel Dean is going to play. He's listed as questionable, hamstring injury he's been bothered with, but it's looking like he's going to play. McCollum, but actually, I think Dean is a big add because as much as I've talked a lot of bad about him and the secondary, he's a constant. He's a guy who's been there, a guy who's been through a lot with the team, and a guy who knows winning and is one of the best in zone coverage you'll see in the NFC South. I'm telling you, it's a huge get. If McCollum plays too, the secondary is almost fully healed. Again, Tyke Smith probably not playing, listed as doubtful this weekend. And also, they have Troy Hill waiting to make his first debut with the Buccaneers. He's questionable to play, but we will see. I think Jamel Dean is the X factor. He's going to help lock down that secondary. And again, you're going to need guys to shut down. You're going to need your extra guys there to stop guys like Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson. And Darius Slayton. I can't forget Slayton. Slayton's a good player. Now, if I go to the offensive side, I have 2 options here. Both are also on the injury report. One has a chance to play but could easily not, and the other is going to play no matter what. So I'm going to pick the guy that's going to play no matter what. I'm going to go with Mike Evans. Yes, I know. Oh my gosh, some surprise, the Bucs fan picks Mike Evans. Yeah, of course I do. Come on. I'm supposed to pick Sterling Shepard, Jalen McMillan. You want me to pick Trey Palmer? I mean, or do you want me to state the obvious and say Cade Otton? Because Cade Otton's been Baker's go-to guy forever. Whenever he has no receivers and they're injured and banged up, he goes down to Cade Otton just like Brady did before him. Otton is very reliable, but he's not my X factor. It's going to be Evans' return. Now defenses have to worry about Evans and covering him and making sure he's double covered and can't get open for plays. Because what that does, it opens the door for the speedsters to make their appearance. That's where you see guys like Palmer and you see guys like McMillan get open on crossing patterns, drags, everything to get quick passes, run upfield, and get the extra yardage. All because the coverage is pulled away, focused on Mike Evans. That is the thing, and that's what I love about having him back. And I could have went with Tristan Wirfs because apparently there's a chance he's going to play now in a heavy knee brace after spraining his freaking PCL, MCL. Like, it's unbelievable. He sprained his knee and he's going to play. There's a chance he plays in a very big brace, but he'll play.
Okay. And then if you were Todd Bowles or anyone on the coaching staff, or even just somebody who covers the Bucks, an X factor for the Giants on offense. I think we know who that's going to be, pending though he's on the injury report. I don't know who your answer is going to be, but also X factor on defense for the Giants.
Mm. So you caught me off guard there. I wasn't ready for that. But I'll say this. If I give my offensive X factor, it's going to not be Malik Neighbors. I know you thought I was probably going to go Neighbors there. I'm not. I would say Tyrone Tracy. I think Tracy is the X factor. That way he's earned the backfield over Devin Singletary is one of the stories that not a single Giants fan has been talking about. I don't think I've seen any Giants supporter really put emphasis on the fact that a rookie running back with not very high expectations overtook a guy who had a monster return breakout year last season in Devin Singletary when he was with Houston. Like, that's just not being discussed at all. So I think if they can get through the Bucs defensive line, which hasn't been that good against the run that year, they've been actually worse than usual. If they can establish the run on the ground with Tracy, it's going to be a hard day for Tampa Bay to kind of get past it on both sides because they don't know what to expect now. If they can't guard against the run, you're going to see breakouts from Tracy, possibly a 100-yard game for him. If they can figure it out, then they kind of got a more stronger understanding of the pass and focus on that more. But I think Tracy is a very good running back, very gifted, and there's a very good chance you're going to see him make a breakout game against the Buccaneers at MetLife. And now you have the defensive side, right?
Correct.
I wish I would have known this because then I could have gave you like a guy to think about for the Giants. I mean, obviously, I could go with the one coming off an injury who was having a great year before he had to miss some time. I'm sure you know who that would be. That would be Kayvon Thibodeau. But I don't know if I'm going to go with Tibbs there. I don't know if I will. I'm thinking there's another guy who I think is going to be a good X factor here. I'm going to go with Tyler Nubin. I think Nubin's going to be big. And the reason why I'm saying another rookie, these are two rookies I'm naming now. The reason why I'm saying Nubin is because you're going to see guys try to run deep patterns here, and he's got to work one-on-one with guys like Sterling Shepard and Mike Evans.
You know, I'm sorry to interrupt, Brian. That's a very good X factor. I'm not even joking you right now because Nubin has been severely overrated by this Giants fan base and content creating crew this year. He's allowed a lot of deep patterns in some plays where him and Banks are just not on sync for double coverage. So I like that, but continue.
You like that or you don't like that?
I like that you put him as an X factor because I think it's the truth.
Okay, thank you. I do think they are right about one thing. They do tend to double up, and that's usually because of miscommunication. That's still got to be worked on. But again, he's a rookie. That gets figured out. But in the end, I think Nubin's a more physical guy. He's not afraid to get up there and size up a big receiver. I'm sure he can do that with Evans, who's not going to be 100%. He's not going to be 100%, but the last 4 seasons, he hasn't been 100% by this point of the season, and he's still found a way to play. So in this case, the only thing you got to worry about is Mike Evans just trying to hit 1,000 yards, and he's got to do almost 100 yards a game to pull that off. Can he do it? Who knows? But it looks like he's going to have to target the rookie in order to pull that off. So Nubin's going to have to handle that. If he handles that one-on-one with Evans, there is an outside shot that with strong play and good management style from Tommy DeVito and Tyrone Tracy that they can pull off a tiny upset on the Bucs.
All right. And finally, where can people find you and any of your work that you display if you do?
Well, you guys can find me on X at BAMansell. I will also be doing some more content in the future on YouTube at the Brian Mansell Show. You guys can go follow and subscribe to that. And I also have a TikTok. The Brian Mansell Show is on there as well. You're going to see more content coming soon about more of what's going on every week. So I'll give you guys an example. I have a video coming out soon about what happened with the snow game and the Jameis Winston renaissance that's happening in Cleveland. I'm going to have something out on that soon, possibly on YouTube, maybe a couple clips on TikTok. But we're trying to ramp up some content over time. And when we get closer to the Senior Bowl, you're going to see a lot more content for the guys for the draft. Trust me, this offseason is going to be big, not only for my channel and the work I do, but also for Alex over here, who's going to be doing some crazy work as well. Trust me, you better be staying tuned for this offseason as well. As we enter the new year, it's a bigger year and a better year for us.
Yeah, definitely. Well, follow Brian. Get in contact with his stuff. Links are in the description. As for this show, like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you know when live stream pops video drops. Check out the recent Daniel Jones video that I did, obviously addressing the entire situation in his release. Appreciate you guys, and we will talk to you